Battle of the Bitters.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. Today is another comparison video, and this is the comparison between two fantastic bitters. One I discovered recently and one which is my regular fridge filler. Now, the Bath Ales Gem was one I discovered literally last week. It had been in Morrison's for X amount of months and I just hadn't bothered to buy it. I don't know why. My bad, as the Americans would say. But I reviewed it just recently and it bowled me over. I really did like it. So much so that I hold it in high esteem as I do the Timothy Taylor's Boltmaker. Now, if you've never had this is a fantastic bitter, and it's indicative of the quality that comes from Timothy Taylor. Now, if you've never had a Timothy Taylor's beer, you're missing out, because they do a fantastic, they call it a pale ale. It's arguably an English ale, certainly a session ale, and it is fantastic both in the bottle and on draft as well. But the Boltmaker is their bitter, and that is a fantastic bitter. I've reviewed this on the channel. It was really good, and ever since then I've had it in my fridge on a regular basis. It's that good. So that's why I've decided to compare the two. Now, there are other fantastic bitters out there. One that immediately springs to mind is the Fuller's ESB, or the Fuller's Extra Special Bitter, as it's known. Everyone knows it as ESB. That is a great bitter. I really do like it. Another one is from the Adnams Brewery, the Adnams Southwold Bitter, which I absolutely love. I think it's a great beer, and I think there should be a comparison between the two. From memory, I would be erring towards the Fuller's ESB, and the only reason for that is I had it recently on draft and it was absolutely gorgeous. So there you go. But we're not talking about them two today. We are talking about these two. Now, this lot been going quite a while. They're based up in the People's Republic of fucking Yorkshire, and they brew, as I say, they brew some fantastic beers. This lot are the young guns of the brewing world. They've been going since 1995. Now, you may think that's quite a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, these have been going a hell of a lot longer. I'm not going to go too much into the history of the two breweries, because they are discussed on other reviews that I've got on the channel. But needless to say, Bath Ales are based in Bath, and they've been going since 1895. Timothy Taylor are based in Yorkshire, and they've been going considerably longer. So there you go. Now, bitter, if you're not familiar with the style, it's an old English style of beer, and it was the staple of many a drinker throughout the 60s, the 50s, the 60s and the 70s. What upended it was the introduction of lager, and it sort of took a back seat then. I mean, you still do get your ardent bitter drinkers, and it's popular up north, you know, with the Timothy Taylor stuff being very, very popular indeed. But there's other little independent brewers as well from up in the north of England who do some fantastic bitters, and in the Midlands and in the south as well. There's some bad bitters out there, but I'm not going to go into that today about them. This is just about these two. The style, it's usually dark and amber, bordering on chestnut, sometimes darker than that. It has only English hops in, or should have only English hops in. If you're putting American hops in, it's not so bitter. It's a bastardisation of the style and has no place calling itself a bitter. And the reason it gets its name it comes from the hops, and the hops are usually Fuggles, Goldings, a mixture of the two. You also get some of the other lesser known English hops, such as First Gold and Challenger. Challenger is actually, I'm saying it's lesser known hops. Challenger is quite a prevalent hop in the style of bitter. It's got the characteristics of being earthy, musty, and peppery, and that's what most of them English hops have in their makeup, and that's what gives it that nice, robust, musty, earthy style flavour with a bitter sort of black pepper finish, hence the name bitter. And it's generally liked in the UK. Now, as I say, it did fall out of favour a little bit, and there's been some kind of, well, some people get the two confused with English ale. Now, English ale does differ slightly from bitters. English ales tend to be a little bit sweeter. They have a more emphasis on the malt, whereas bitters do make a big emphasis on the hops. That's where the flavour comes from. That's where the name comes from. The bitterness does come from the hops. There are sometimes sweet malt in there. Maris Otter being a popular malt for bitter and dark ales like this. On the subject of dark ales, I have also got another two in the fridge, two fantastic beers that I'm going to do a comparison on that are English ales. The Hook Norton Old Hooky, which is a fantastic, really good old English ale, and the latecomers, or not the latecomers, the young guns of the brewing world, from Surrey, the Hogsback Brewery TEA, or Traditional English Ale as it's known. And there is a marked difference between that and bitter. As I say, there's a lot more sweeter, malty notes on it, and there's a lot more fruitier notes on there as well. But there you go, that's the distinction between the two styles. They shouldn't really be confused. They are different, they may look the same, they may contain similar ingredients, but they are different. So there you go, hopefully that clears up a little bit about the style. All that remains now is to get these two open and tasted. Right, let's compare the two, both 500ml bottles. This slightly lower ABV at 4.2%, and this is 4.8. This is more of a session bitter. This is more of a bit of a stronger bitter, but it could be sessioned if you wanted to. The brew sheets on these, well, I'll just read out the gun from the back. It'll give you an idea. Bulkmaker is a well-balanced Yorkshire bitter with a full measure of maltiness and hoppy aroma. Bulkmaker was awarded Camera Draft Supreme Champion Beer of Britain in 2014, Champion Beer of Britain, Bitter category 2016. Taylor's Taste is achieved by using the finest natural ingredients, a unique Knoll spring water, the highest grade Golden Promise malted barley with whole leaf hops, and our own Timothy Taylor's yeast. Yeah, just a quick note on the hops that are used in this. It's got Goldings, Styrian Goldings, and Fuggles. Again, Fuggles are another popular hop that is used in English beer, but the Styrian Goldings are not English. So I retract my statement slightly when I said about the hops being English. Styrian Goldings are, of course, from Slovenia. So, but they are in the style of a Golding hop, which is, you know, the Golding hops are grown over here. In fact, East Kent Goldings are quite famous in the brewing world. But that's what they put into this beer. The one difference, this beer does contain brewing sugar, or invert sugar, as it's known. So there you go. Now, on this one, it just says Gem is a full-bodied malty amber ale. I did go through this on the review of the amber ale. It's a bitter, and this used to be a best bitter as well. So the two are, in my opinion, best bitters. They call it amber ale. It's pure marketing. I don't think they want to put bitter on there. Timothy Taylor haven't even put that. Well, they have. They put its Yorkshire bitter in smaller letters, but they don't make a big thing about it being bitter, and this one certainly doesn't, but that's what it is. It says Gem's a full-bodied malty amber ale based on traditional British malt and hops, a bit of sweet and well-balanced beer. So there you go, and the hops that are used in this are East Kent Goldings amongst others, and they also use Maris Otter as well. So, on paper, these look really good. Let's compare the two. Been looking forward to this all day. I've been fucking busy at work, and the only thing that's kept me going is the thought of supping these two lovely bitters. Right, now, I have said in all my comparison videos that when I do these comparison videos, there's the caps by the way, if you can see them, if autofocus wants to do its thing. In these comparison videos, I'm comparing the best with the best. So to make it onto one of these, you have to have been a beer that's really impressed me. Not that I'm saying I'm some fucking guru or expert on beer, but it's what I think are two very good beers. That's what I'm comparing, and I want to find out which one, in my opinion, is the best. So this is why I'm doing it. Just a quick little sort of mention about bitter. Bitter did become slightly, well, not very popular, obviously with the advent of lager, but during the 70s there was some very fucking poor excuses for beer floating about, and some of the offerings were not great. I remember when I first left school, I was 16, don't tell anyone, but I was drinking Webster's Yorkshire Bitter, and the only reason I did that was because it was cheaper than lager. And then I discovered light and lager, which made things a little more easier for me. There you go. There's the two. And I'm just being bombarded with aromas here, which is great. Let's try let's compare the two colours first. They're very, very similar, if you can see that. I don't know whether the light is going to pick that up, but they're almost identical in colour. They're like a dark amber, dark copper type colour. The Bath Ales Gem is in the London Pride glass, and the Timothy Taylor Bulk Maker is in the Bass glass. So, aroma. Oh, absolutely fucking gorgeous. A perfect balance of malty sweetness and hop bitterness. Earthy, musty, hop bitterness. And that really does come through. And it smells pungent, which is a really good sign. When you get a beer that has an aroma like that, you know the flavours are going to be big, which they are. The temperatures on this are perfect. I think they're roughly around cellar temperature at the moment. Been in the fridge for about an hour, and it just smells amazing. You know what, I'm such a sad bastard, I could sit here and sniff this all day. Lovely. That is pure England that you're smelling out of that glass. And mighty fine it is too. Lovely. On the nose on this one. Slightly different. Not as pronounced earth on this one as there is on that one. But I'm sort of getting a balance of sweet malt and earthiness, but slightly more subdued than the Timothy Taylor. It smells absolutely gorgeous though. Some mild fruity notes on this as well, like apple, and I don't mean, and I have seen this in beers before, there's two distinct apple type aromas. One is a nasty off smell, which you shouldn't be getting. It's like an acidic smell that means the beer is oxidised, but you do get like a nice sweet orchard type aroma from certain English beers, and that of course comes from the hops. This is definitely the more bitter smelling. This is sweeter, which is unusual because this contains invert sugar. Right, let's stop gassing and let's taste these beers. Timothy Taylor first. Bottoms up. Lovely. Absolutely gorgeous. A really good balance of lovely sweet malt, earthy, bitter, spicy hops on there, typically English hops. but I do get a slight seam of invert sugar in this as well, which just, I don't know, it just makes this perfectly balanced, if you know what I mean. And they're the three main flavours that I'm getting from this. There's a lovely bitterness to it, and that finish is quite bitter too. Really nice. I wouldn't say there's much fruit on that at all. This is all about the malt and the hop bitterness. That's all I'm getting. And that is superb. That really is a quality bitter. Right, now let's go for the Bath Ales Gem. This is the younger one of the two, but nevertheless still a good pint. Bottoms up. Right, that's got a lighter body to it. This is the Timothy Taylor Bulkmaker, is much more full-bodied in my opinion. This has got a lighter mouthfeel to it, very smooth. The head on that is super smooth, and it goes down absolutely seamlessly. It's just perfect. But there is a difference in the flavour, I will say that. The flavours in this are much more subdued, and I've got mixed feelings about the two. I love the robustness of the Timothy Taylor, and I love the huge bitter finish. But overall, this has got a much lighter mouthfeel, more drinkable, I think, even though the ABV is lower on that. This has just got a little bit more going for it, I think. That's a super soft mouthfeel on that. In fact, that could be, I mean, you can see a little bit of carbonation in that, but it's so smooth on the palate, you could be mistaken for thinking this has come out off of a keg or a cask. It's really nice. There is a little bit more fruit on this, but not a lot, but just a little bit of fruit on that as well. The biggest difference for me is the mouthfeel. That's super soft, super smooth. This is robust, and it's very in your face with the flavours. More carbonation on this as well. Let me just get the rest of it in there. Get a little bit of a head going on it as well. Get the rest of it into that one as well. Oh, I've already done that. Just comparing the heads, this has got a slightly lighter head. The Timothy Taylor's is more of a tan head, slightly light tan head. Flavours are definitely bigger on this. Much more pronounced hop character. And that's dominant. The hop character is dominant on this. The malt, yes, you can get it, and I'm not sure how much of a part the invert sugar is playing on that, on the sweetness, but the hops are big in this. Very pungent hops. That's really nice. Oh, this is going to be difficult, but at the moment, as much as I love Timothy Taylor, and it is my fridge filler, I'm erring towards the Bath Ales Gem. It's just smoother. Flavours aren't as robust, but this is just a little bit more drinkable for me. Nice balance of hop bitterness, but the malt is bigger on this as well. Now, here we come to the beer style. Is which one is the more typical of a bitter, or being a bitter? Well, I think the Bolt Maker is. This is definitely got the style nailed to a T. And it's more true to the style of an English bitter. This is also of the style of an English bitter, but it's smoother. The hop character isn't as big, but I'm wondering which one now, because I'm comparing two bitters. Now, I suppose ultimately it's about the drinking experience, but this is the more characteristic of an English bitter. It definitely is. When you try this on its own, you think that's an excellent English bitter, but when you try it with this, the flavours don't compare. And I'm, again, in all these videos, I'm in a bit of a quandary now, because on the one hand, this is a fantastic beer, but on the other hand, this is more in keeping with the style. This has got slightly subdued, balanced flavours, whereas this is in your face. There is malt on there, 40%, but 60% of this is the hop character. And it just has that real musty, bitter. I mean, that doesn't really sound very appealing, but it's in keeping with the style, and I do like that in an English bitter. And what do we do here then? I'm not going to tie it. I have to make a decision. I think the Gem wins it for the overall drinkability and flavour. No, I'll rephrase that. The overall drinkability, the nice light mouthfeel, and the smoothness. But for flavour, this is bold and full of character. I suppose typical of a Yorkshireman, really, I suppose. But there's more of the hop character coming through. There's more of the bitterness on the finish that comes through on this, which really does what it says on the bottle. It just gets nicer as it goes down. Oh, what do I do here? These are both excellent beers. I will say that, and you won't go wrong if you buy either. But I was erring towards the Bath Ales Gem. But the more I drink this, the more I think it's got more character. The more it encapsulates the style. It's bolder. It's more full-bodied. And I think I'm going to have to give it to the Timothy Taylor now, having compared the two. Lovely, light, very drinkable, nice balanced flavour. Not as bitter on the finish as the Timothy Taylor, but just overall a very, very good English beer. This, on the other hand, lower ABV, fuller bodied. They call it balanced, Timothy Taylor's. I wouldn't say it's balanced. Yes, there is malt on the palate and sweetness on the palate coming from the invert sugar, but the finish is just pure hops, and they're bitter hops, bitter English hops, which gives it its name and its characteristic. It's really nice. I have to say, they both are fantastic beers, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Timothy Taylor. And that's a real close run thing, because the Bath Ales Gem does have a lot that this doesn't have. It has a great mouthfeel. The body on it may not be as big, but it's super smooth, and it makes it really, really drinkable. Now, if you put that down as a session bitter, that would be perfect. Obviously, the ABV is slightly higher, but if this was if the Bath Ales was 4.1, and it had a lower ABV, for me that would be the perfect session ale. And it is 4.1 on cask, so again, maybe I should be comparing the cask, but I'm not. This is all about the bottles. I'm not saying I only review bottles on here, but I have been known to review cask. But I think this, for me, the Timothy Taylor, I think it wins it by a gnat's chuff, because I think it encapsulates the style of bitter a little bit more. The flavours are bolder and bigger, and it's got a lot of character to it, and it comes from a great brewery as well, with a good pedigree. I mean, the other stuff they do, this is the only one I've tried from the Bath Ales. I will try some more from them. I've got them down as being an excellent brewery on the strength of that, but I just think Timothy Taylor has nudged it here. So what's the verdict on these two then? Well, yeah, both fantastic beers, really good beers. If you buy either of these, you are not going to be losing out at all. This, for its drinkability and its balance and its general all-round flavour, it's just packed with it. And this is a very, very nice drinking experience, I will say that. The Timothy Taylor, on the other hand, if it's flavour you're after, big, bold flavour, then I think you're not going to go wrong with this. And this does make a thing about being Yorkshire bitter. Yorkshire bitter, if you tried any of the Sam Smith stuffs, you'll know that it's big in flavour, and this really is. And it's typical of Timothy Taylor. They just brew fantastic beer, but they've been doing it for quite a while, and you can see why. This won Champion Beer of Britain in 2014 and Champion Beer of Britain bitter category in 2016. Yep, that makes perfect sense. I'm not sure what the awards are on this, if they list them. Do they? No, they don't. I'm sure this has won some awards. No, they don't, unfortunately. So, yeah, I can't really fill you in on what the awards are. But I think, for me, well, they've been going since 1858. So they've got a little bit more experience in the brewing field. But would you believe, I think, was it Iyinger or one of the German brewers actually went to Britain? I think it might have been Iyinger. Went to Britain and saw what Timothy Taylor was doing back in the 1800s and went back to Germany and started brewing absolutely fantastic beer. But yeah, I mean, the pedigrees on these two beers, you can't compare the two. This has got a lot of history behind it, a lot of tradition. These are the young guns, but I'll tell you something, they're fucking making some fantastic beer. And I'm just going to have one last sup from the two. I mean, I'm pretty equal on both, but that's just so smooth, so full of flavour, and the flavours are more balanced and subdued compared to this. I'm not saying these flavours are subdued at all. When I talk about subdued flavours, I'm talking about masked and subdued. Compared to this, they're slightly subdued, more rounded, and the mouthfeel on that is almost like it's come from a cask, and that's no mean feat coming from a bottle. This stuff, on the other hand, is just big, bold, full of flavour, malty on the palate, super hop heavy on the finish. as a good bitter should be. And that's why I'm going to give it to Timothy Taylor. They just, I don't know, I think they've nailed the style a little bit better. But as I say, if you buy either, then you're not missing out at all. These are two absolutely fantastic beers, and you can get both in Morrison's. So if you're lucky enough to, I don't know whether you can get this though, if you live up north. But you can certainly get both of these if you live down south. So if you live down south and you live near a big Morrison's, you should be able to get these two. I urge you to get the two, try them out. If you do, send me your comments. And remember, before I do all these taste is subjective. So what you think may be different to what I think. There is no right and wrong. It's just what you like. And if you like good English beers, you're not going to go wrong with either of these. But for me, today is Timothy Taylor. But this is certainly going to be on my radar. And remember, just like these two, beer is working class champagne.
Like and subscribe. When a puppy gets it. Isn't that right, Purse? Yeah, get off.